I wonder what number thumbnail I am of a critic who's reviewing this movie and makes this face for the thumbnail. I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of those. Either that or really angry faces. I actually don't think this is warranting of like a really angry face. I'll just say right off the bat, I don't think, I was going to say X-Men Dark Phoenix, but it's not that, is it? It's just Dark Phoenix. You don't even need X-Men anymore, I guess. I don't know. But I don't think Dark Phoenix is as bad as everyone is saying it is. I didn't hate it. I think there's one or two kind of entertaining moments. It's usually shot pretty nice. There's an occasional creative action moment. Not an entire sequence, but an action moment. And it's still not good. It's a bad movie. I'd say... Okay, so when I saw the trailer for this movie, I really thought, like, man, this is going to be... this is just going to be another generic X-Men movie where they started to get, like, away from that with First Class and really started to bring, like, this new life into it. And then they brought Singer back, and they started to go kind of the old school X-Men movies, which aren't awful or terrible or anything. They're just kind of bland, and I feel like comic book movies have really come a far way. I think those are steps backwards. And now we have this one, which is, I mean... Yeah, it kind of feels like another step backwards, but at least it stuck more to the comics, unlike that awful, Last Stand, because that was just terrible compared to this. No energy or fun or creativity or ideas at all compared to this. They follow the comic closer, so it's good. Okay, I'm sorry. I go on and on about how Last Stand gets way too much shit. It's compared to all the other X-Men movies that's come out, it is looking better and better, isn't it? But I get people who don't like it. I have a soft spot, but like X-Men movies in general, because I love the X-Men. I loved the cartoon growing up. I loved reading the comic. I just thought this incredible energy and color, and like I said, just cool ideas. And this one is very colorless. The acting is kind of bizarre because it's not quite laugh out loud bad, though there are some times. Most of them belong to Jennifer Lawrence, but there definitely are times where the acting is just so awkward. It did make me giggle, but it's not the majority. I'm watching this, I'm saying, what's wrong with the acting in this? Because, like, if I was on set and just listening to him talk, I'd be, oh, okay, that's a good job. But something about it altogether wasn't clicking, and I think I figured out what it was. Everyone has this... It's not quite monotone. It's kind of like a few steps above monotone, but it's not that. I've seen actors that do nothing but monotone, and they're boring, and they're not interesting, and these actors aren't really doing that. But there is sort of like... There's kind of like this beat that it follows, and it never really changes. It's like everyone plays this one note of acting that in a good symphony, those would be good notes, but when it's just this one note, it gets pretty dull, not surprisingly. The way everyone talks is kind of like this, with these pauses. In a way, it's kind of Shatner-ish, but every once in a while, when you're emotional, you might raise your voice a little bit, like this. So you see you're listening, but now you're starting to get a little bored of what I'm saying and the way I'm saying it. It's that tone throughout the whole thing, which, don't get me wrong, people when they're in, something really dramatic is going on or they need to really make a point, they can talk that way, that there's kind of that quiet power that you can bring, but again, it's kind of like hearing a nice little melody, and that melody just keeps repeating over and over and over. There's no variation. That's kind of what the acting is like. So I kind of feel bad because I don't feel that's necessarily the actor's fault. I feel that is kind of a directing thing where, you need to mix it up. There could have been a bit more smiling in this movie, and I know it sounds weird because it's Dark Phoenix, because that's the only Phoenix there is. There's never any other type of Phoenix, personality or anything that ever happened. It's always the bad, dark one. But yeah, I feel like even in, you look at something like Endgame, which, God, is that like just long and drawn out and dramatic and stuff, but they still tell a few jokes. They still get a few laughs and smiles. Sometimes they try to find the positive of something terrible that happened, and this just seemed like once it got, even when things are good, they're miserable. Like, the movie opens up with the X-Men. It's a little weird, but at the same time, I'm like, all right, I'm kind of open to this. Like, the X-Men are now, like, kind of seen as superheroes. It takes place in 1992, which is really weird, because that's when the X-Men cartoon came out, and this really is not the X-Men cartoon. But the everybody accepts them. There's kind of like the Bat phone, except for the X-Men, where the president calls it just has a big X on it. But I'm kind of open to that, because at least it's a bit more comic booky. I mean, it's silly, but it's like, all right. I mean, I don't know if that's X-Men, but at least it's kind of comic bookish. And everyone kind of loves them. There's little toys made out of them and everything. So things have apparently really come a long way. And I think by now, you don't even try with the timeline. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, how many years until they're going to look like Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen? It doesn't make any sense. But they go into space. They go pretty quick into space. Nightcrawler has to zap across space, in from one shuttle into the other. The Blackbird can now go into space and everything, and it's silly, but I'm kind of okay with it, because I'm just like, okay, this is at least going a few extra steps from what we normally see in these X-Men movies. It's kind of having fun. It's feeling comic bookish. But then after this giant fire beam whatever goes into Jean, which somehow she can breathe in space. I totally didn't hear how, because was it Quicksilver? Is that his name? Whatever he's called. He makes like this fast little duct tape astronaut outfit for Nightcrawler, but then Jean Grey's like, I'm fine. Like, how? I totally missed that, but you kind of know this. She gets kind of Fantastic Four'd into this, where like the giant fire beam, like hits her, and like it turns her into the Phoenix, which is a nickname again. And even that doesn't totally make sense, because at the end of Apocalypse, they show her like shooting out the Firebird, which is like, well, okay, so they're doing this thing again where it's not going to be aliens, and now in this one it's like, no, it is aliens. Well, what was the Firebird thing before? Like, it didn't make any sense. But anyway, so after that, it just kind of goes pretty slow, but not too, like, for me, not quite aggravatingly slow, because I was with it okay. It's just that acting kind of finally just drains you. Like I said, I mean, you're just like, okay, it's just kind of this way of talking throughout the whole thing, and there's no variation, and that gets old after a while. They do stick, well, I wouldn't say it's 100% faithful, clearly, to the comic. They stick closer to what the Phoenix is. It is, this alien force. There are aliens that come down and try to, take control of it. I guess just the regular good Phoenix, or whatever you want to call it. Phoenix is a complicated story, but anyway. But, she starts off, I guess, okay, and then goes crazy pretty fast. And I guess it's supposed to be like a White Queen comes in, but she's an alien now. And there was a White Queen, like, in First Class, too, so it's really confusing. They never call her White Queen, but it's like, that was White Queen in the comic, right? That was, like, trying to take control of her and trying to mess with her mind and everything. But anyway, so this alien woman comes in. They want the power for themselves. And it's just kind of watching Jean go nuts and go, why did I go nuts? And then she goes nuts, and why did I go nuts? And it's just kind of that over and over. And the big problem is, like, even though I always kind of made fun of the X-Men movies for acting like they have a lot of character there, but they really usually don't, it's usually, like, just enough where I'm interested. Where with this one, they're really trying to do like this big dive into Jean Grey, like really make her interesting. And she's always been the most boring character. The only thing interesting about her is that she's the Phoenix. I get why she's there. You need her. I mean, she's like, the second banana to Xavier, and she's kind of like the... she's kind of like the counselor that everybody can talk to, kind of thing. And you need that. You need the kind, sympathetic, a grounded mutant, which is really great. But everyone wants to do the Phoenix story. Not even Phoenix, just Dark Phoenix, where she goes crazy, because they think it's like this really great story, and it's like, it's good, it's big. I think that's why everybody wants to do it, because, worlds get destroyed, and galaxies, and, like, whole civilizations get destroyed, just because this force inside her head goes nuts, and she's usually seen as this very, nice, kind character, but it's kind of like, it's the equivalent of, like, doing Star Trek The Next Generation movies and just putting all the focus on Counselor Troy. It's like, why? Like, she's fine, she's needed, she's a decent enough character, but, like, it's like, no, not Picard, not Data, not Worf, Troy! We gotta really make a lot of movies about Troy, and it's like, why? That's what I feel like whenever they do anything with Jean Grey, the Dark Phoenix, and... If I'm right, I think Jean's only been, this version of Jean has only been in one movie. I think she's only been in Apocalypse. Maybe she's been, like, teased before, but it's like we've only seen her a little bit in Apocalypse. And even then, it's not much. Because it's Jean Grey. She's not that interesting. She's either the trophy between, like, Cyclops and Wolverine, or she's, like I said, the grounded mutant that goes crazy because she was Dark Phoenix. So I don't get why they keep coming back to this. I think it was just their way of saying, hey, we made up for, Last Stand, which, good job. I'd rather watch Last Stand any day over this. I think I'd rather... I don't think this is the worst one. I think Origins is worse. I think, in terms of watching, it's not a worse movie, but it's tough. Would I rather watch this over the Wolverine? I don't know. The Wolverine is not that bad a movie. You could even argue, actually, it's a very decent movie. It's just kind of dull. But it makes more sense than this. Like, for example, Storm is in this movie too. Again, I think she comes in Apocalypse, but it's like, okay, so she controls the weather, and that's about it. And again, to like the original X-Men's credit, even though I think they gave her more character because it was played by Halle Berry and she turned into a big star, they did try to give her more credit. And they're playing off this movie like you've known these characters forever, and you really haven't. You've seen different versions of them in the early X-Men movies, but we haven't really set up this Storm that much, or this Jean that much, or this Cyclops that much. And you're missing a lot of the crowd favorites. You're not going to get, Wolverine in there. You're not going to get Gambit in there. You're not going to get Rogue in there. The ones that people really like to see. So you're kind of getting the ones that, like... You're getting the trading cards that nobody minds losing. It's like a whole X-Men movie of trading cards nobody cares about. Like, oh, you want Wolverine? Do you have Jean? I'll give you Jean for Wolverine, because God, I want Wolverine. Or Gambit, or any of them. So that's kind of the main problem, is that the movie is playing it like we really know these characters. And even when they're trying to take time to set them up, particularly Jean, that's arguably the only one they're trying to set up, she's just not that interesting, and it's still, like I said, that one-note acting. The other thing that's kind of odd, like, because I love James McAvoy, he's one of those actors that can do very little wrong to me. I can kind of sum up his acting in kind of one weird delivery. Like, his whole performance is just kind of like, what? Like, that's kind of his thing. Like, it's not quite Mark Wahlberg, what? No! But it's kind of like, what? Like, that's kind of his thing throughout it's kind of like a jerky shrug. That's what the whole performance feels like. Like, it's somebody, this isn't really a spoiler, I won't say who, you can figure it out pretty easily, but somebody dies in this movie, and this is supposed to be like hitting him pretty hard, and somebody else is really angry about it. He has to talk with him, and the whole thing is just like, what are you talking about? What? come on. And it's like he just lost like a dear friend in this, and he's just acting like, it's dumb. Stupid. You're stupid. Like, it's very bizarre. So, and that's not necessarily what he's saying, but, like, his performance comes across like that half the time. And I'm wondering if part of that is the editing, too, because a lot of the editing, well, I don't remember being bad or anything. There are times where, like, you see the Blackbird's landing, zoom, there's smoke and everything, zoom, it just cuts to them walking out. Like, there's no more smoke, no more shaking, the sound's going, like, it was there's little scenes like that, too, like this explosion will happen in a train, and somebody turns, and all of a sudden, just all the bad guys are lined up inside, and there's no smoke or anything. There's kind of weird edits like that, so I'm kind of wondering if maybe some of these scenes would play better if some of the editing, if they were expanded a bit more, but I don't think so, because like I said, there's so little variation in how they're acting. There's another strange scene where, like, a Nightcrawler at one scene, which again, I think he came in Apocalypse, so we don't know him that long. He had very little attention in Apocalypse, aside from, just using his powers. There's one scene where, like, he tries to save someone and he can't. And he just goes, "Rah!" And he just, like, I guess goes nuts and starts killing a bunch of these, people, the bad guys. Which at first I'm like, well, okay, I don't know Nightcrawler that well in this universe, whatever you're doing with him. And B, like, the Nightcrawler I remember was, like, super religious and didn't want to kill anybody, didn't even want to hurt anybody. So this seems kind of out of left field. So not only have you not established who this character is in this new universe, but it also doesn't match the other universe that set him up before. So that's a huge problem. It kind of feels that way with most of the characters. They just feel like because there have been so many X-Men movies and we've seen a version of Jean, a version of Cyclops, a version of Beast. We've seen Beast a little bit. Honestly, the people that we've seen more than one movie on, they're basically the most interesting because we got to know them a little bit, this Magneto, we've got to know this Xavier and this Beast, but all the other ones, we've had a movie and they didn't really dive that much into them, so it just, there's no connection with them. But with that said, there's still one or two cool scenes of Phoenix doing some cool Phoenix things, blowing shit up and acting crazy. Once in a while, there's a real bad delivery, acting-wise. And like I said, a lot of them are from Jennifer Lawrence. I remember everyone said, like, in Apocalypse, she was really, really bad. And I don't know, I've only seen Apocalypse once. Big shock. But I don't remember her being that bad. But maybe that's just, I was distracted by everything else because everyone said, oh, she's so bad in Apocalypse. But I missed it. Maybe I gotta see it again. She's bad here. Like, she is just, this is, what's my contract? All right, this gotta be the last one, right? It's gotta be the last one. And the dialogue in the movie, too, sadly is just written for, like, an asshole like me to make jokes about, because it's stuff like Magneto saying, yes, Charles, things always go wrong, there's always an apology, there's always a speech, and nobody cares. And I'm just like, yeah? There's a scene at the end where it's like, again, the X-Men are heroes at the beginning of this. At some point they're arrested, and one of the guards is like, my kids used to be such a fan of you. And it's like, yeah. There's the whole ending, honestly, again, without getting into spoilers, is kind of building up like, yeah, the X-Men are gone and I'm not gone. It's just a new beginning or something. And it's like, Disney just bought Fox, so please start this over. Please let this be the last one of this, whatever you want to call it, Singer universe. I mean, like, half of them, the cool ones are gone. Wolverine's gone. Gambit's gone. Oh, you're not going to bring it back. Rogue was botched. So it's like, let's start this over. I saw you doing Fantastic Four next. You're redoing that. Let's get X-Men going. Do a TV show like Jessica Jones or something like that so you can spend even more time with them. Just do something really cool. Let's stop this universe, man. Everyone kind of acts like they're kind of done. Even people who it's only their second movie. There's not even that many new mutants in this. That's one of the things you always look forward to with these X-Men movies is what new mutant are they going to show, but they've either, already used them and not very well. Like, God, how cool would it be how cool would it have been to see Bishop, actually be Bishop, but, we just get a little sneak preview of him in Days of Future Past. Like, there's all these cool mutants you can use. So they're either out of them or they just have, the ones they have now, they're not really established yet, at least not in this world, so they have to try and give them some attention, and they're not that good at it. So, but with that said, anytime there's, like, an action sequence, when it's not shaky cam, they do a little bit of that, and they got some cool scenes. Anytime Magneto does something, it's cool. Anytime a mutant kind of needs to look cool, they make them look pretty cool. Whenever somebody flies in, it's like, all right, that's neat. Them going into space and doing the space stuff is kind of neat. Every once in a while, it kind of feels like X-Men, which, again, I like seeing. More of that color in there. It opens up with them in the sort of the bright yellow and blue outfits, and they're going to the Blackbird, and they're going to go into space, and I'm like, well, okay, you haven't set up much. It's pretty silly, but it's like, all right, at least it's feeling a touch like X-Men, but yeah, that's about it in terms of, like, that much of a connection to, like, the original source material. They do have it where it's aliens, great, but Jean is still boring, the aliens are boring, and the closest thing to interesting outside of the way it's shot sometimes and occasional action scene is the actors we've actually gotten to know, James McAvoy and so forth, are doing, they do okay. But as they themselves acknowledge as their characters, they've just done this a million times now. It just feels old. It feels stale. But like I said, I can't say any of it feels really half-assed. There's some movies where you can feel that, or they just feel so lost and they don't know what they're doing. And I feel like, no, this director had an idea, and he was trying to, bring the big screen version of this, and it didn't work. It was not an interesting vision. I can't even say it's like a terrible vision, because it's not. It's competently done. It's you see the trailer, if you're like, ooh, I want to see that, most likely you'll get the movie you think you're gonna see. But I don't know anyone that wanted to see this movie. Everyone I saw, it's like, oh, this again? Are they still doing this? And yeah, everyone kind of has that feel to them. Like, yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to be professional, but yeah, there's nothing new here, right? There's like nothing interesting left in this universe. Like, that's kind of the feeling that you get from it. So I feel like they're trying, but they're like, there's nothing here. There's nothing to do with this. So yeah, I don't hate this movie. I just think it's not very interesting. There's one or two cool moments where I'm like, all right, that's neat, but even like a big Quicksilver scene, like, he has a few scenes in the opening and he just kind of vanishes. I think he gets hurt. like he trips, and then you see there, like, he's like in a stretcher, but he's still like blinking his eyes. I mean, he's still like, hey, I'm here. And then we just don't see him. I don't know if they couldn't, like, get him for the rest of the movie, if he had to, like, shoot another movie or something like that, but he has, like, a 1-second appearance at the end, and he's, like, the one thing that everyone loved in all these new movies. So, yeah, that's about it. If you're looking at the trailer and you're just like, I'm probably not going to like that, you're probably not going to like it. The trailer is actually a very good indication of what you're going to get. If you want to see Michael Fassbender I'll say this, he and the effects people and the cinematographer have totally recreated what it means to walk away from an explosion without looking at it. Because I feel like in every movie, he does something cool and he doesn't look back. Like, he'll be walking, all these people hold guns at him, he just goes like this, and they all go flying, like, while he's white. In this one, he's walking in while a train is, like, crashing into a door behind him, and he's controlling it, so it blocks it out. Like, I feel like he's recreated the explosion without looking back at it, so once in a while there's a little cool scene like that I'm like, all right, that was neat. And there's very few moments where I was actually like, oh, that's stupid, oh, that's terrible. It's just not that fascinating. It just seems like there's nothing new left. So I really feel like this franchise needs to be scrapped, you're done, and go ahead, start it over. I don't think it's the worst one. I think you'd argue, like I say, X-Men Origins is worse. I think you could argue Apocalypse is worse. God, what the hell were even the other ones? Like I said, I don't know if I'd rather watch this over the Wolverine, because the Wolverine is actually... No, I'd rather watch the Wolverine over this, more I think about it. That with, like, the culture and the shots and that little psychic he had with the red hair, like she was cool. I'm like, yeah, you know, I gotta see that movie again, actually. And maybe it's better than I remember. I just remember it being kind of boring. But, yeah, that's about where I am with the X-Men movies now. At Dark Phoenix, I'd be fascinated to see if this did well box office wise, because it's getting trashed by critics, and everyone I've talked to is just like they're done with these X-Men, and maybe that's the attitude I went in with this too, and so I set the bar so low that I'm just like, what I got wasn't awful. I don't think it was terrible, but it's not good. It's not a good flick. So yeah, that's my take, and I will see you next time. Take care.